Jonathan Morgan. I'm the CEO and founder of Object Matrix Limited. The presentation is about exploiting your media archive, and in particular, I'm taking a look at how that was done, especially during this COVID situation, but also extending that out and looking very much at where we're going to go after COVID is over. First of all, a really quick look at Object Matrix, but then 10 customer case studies of what people did during COVID. Then look at the public cloud and how that fits into the future, and perhaps sometimes how it doesn't fit into the future for some workflows. And then very much looking at how we can improve those workflows using the technology from Object Matrix. Object Matrix, sometimes called the world's best kept secret when it comes to object storage, has actually been around for 17 years. We started way back in 2003. We weren't really very well known. We were building the technology. It was really about 2009 that we said, we've got a great object storage technology. It scales, it keeps data securely. It has an awful lot of metadata management functionality that you don't always find in other solutions. And looking at that, we said, this is a great fit for the media industry. It handles large files really well. It handles random access really well. It has all of the features you'd expect from an object store in terms of API, data analysis. The media industry will love this. So we focused in on the media industry, picked up a couple of early customers in terms of NBC and Miami Heat, moving on to post-production houses like Halo. And as you can see over the years, over the last 10 or so years, we've actually installed over 200 clusters to the media industry. Object Matrix is focused very much on 3 areas when it comes to the solution set that we provide. So first of all, business continuity. This is really relevant to the whole COVID situation. How do I carry on working, whether I'm in the office, out of the office, if my office systems are down, if my out of office systems are down, how do I continue business as normal? We've been preaching this for 10 plus years, and obviously, yeah, hugely relevant when it comes to remote work. Secondly, we're very much talking about self-service. You've got a large archive of media and you want to be able to access it. You want to make new content. Actually, I think the broadcasters right now, they're crying out for content they can put onto their timelines and play out lists, etc. How do I make new content without going to an archivist and saying, can you please load up a tape into your LTO machine and be able to access that footage? Where is that footage on that tape? How do I find what's where? No, we need to move completely away from this old world way of working and into a world where archives are completely accessible to everybody from everywhere. The third kind of area that we're particularly focused on is delivering that experience, whether it's on premises, if it's working from home, if it's hybrid, i.e. working on things on-prem but then appear in the cloud, or if it's a solution that actually you just purely want to access remotely, wherever your team of workers are. And actually, Object Matrix, with our solution, we not only offer business continuity and self-service, but deployment options that address all of that on-prem, hybrid, cloud set of workflows that you might want to do. COVID hit us all back in March in a big way, and has gone on probably a lot longer than any of us would have liked and maybe predicted. What did our broadcasters, post-production houses, sports video producers do about their content? Did they go to the public cloud? The first customer case study I will look at is Gorilla. Gorilla is a post-production house in the UK. It's based in Cardiff. It does a lot of Netflix post-production. They had COVID hit the same as everybody. And I said to them, what did you do? Did you turn to the cloud? And they said, no, we went to remote work. And actually, they had been looking at remote workflows for a while. So perhaps they were a bit ahead of the curve of some organizations in this way. And basically, the items on the slide that are listed is the technologies that they turned to as soon as COVID hit. So Matrix Store, they had that from Object Matrix. That was their archive, their nearline repository that they could use for their media. And we have a tool called Vision that could be used in the browser in order to be able to search, preview, take media from the archive and deliver that to production systems. They then used Teradici with a connection over the internet, and they use that as remote workstations. I think this is pretty familiar. We've heard during Vortec about different remote production workflows, and quite often Teradici came up as a way to remote workstation your home work environment into your on-prem environment. They used HP ZBoost, they used Avid for editorial management, and they used Source Elements with Source Connect for further data management. But basically the story is one of remote workstation and remote workflow. Second case study, British Telecom, another Matrix Store customer, and the other case studies I'm going to do aren't all about Matrix Store, but BT, very much a Matrix Store customer. They've been using our technology for over 10 years. And Pete Harvey, head of content productions at BT, was very kind to give us a quote. And he said, since moving to a contingency way of working, Vision from Matrix Store, from Object Matrix, using Matrix Store, has enabled the team to seamlessly continue with a rebrand project, ensuring restore volumes meet daily targets. Working remotely in operations can have its challenges, but the Vision tool has allowed the team to continue with a business as usual approach. So again, did they run off to the cloud? No, they remote worked in. It's a familiar story. And this story is repeated again on a conference call that we had with various different customers, not Object Matrix customers, but people in the media industry. Number one example, remote worked in to render to cloud workflows. Number two example, remote workstations using Aspera to copy data to work from home laptops. So a little bit different. They didn't have remote desktops with a, basically working from home, controlling a desktop in the office. On this particular example, they actually gave their employees laptops and they moved data down to the laptops in order for them to be able to work from home and then back up and upload the data afterwards. Third example, very much a virtual machine environment with remote working into those virtual machines in order to be able to continue the work they were doing. Fourth example, actually this particular place, it was a sports video company, and they calculated that 15 to 18 megabits per second gave them the ability for their workers to remote desktop in. But if those remote workers had 30 megabits per second, then they preferred to download the content to the laptops and work on it there and then ingest the resulting data back to the head office. So the fifth example from this conference call, actually this was very much a cloud production place anyway. So they just moved an extra 2 petabytes of data. I say just, obviously that was a big operation in order to do that. But they moved another 2 petabytes up to the cloud, and then they remoted into the office in order to be able to do ingest workflows and use quality control tools. A little note about quality control. It was a recurring theme that working remotely to your head office or to cloud, actually quality control is a really difficult thing to achieve at a good level unless you have that kind of speed of access that you only really get when you're in a on-prem, in the office environment. So the sixth example from this particular conference call, everything was cloud anyway. It was an esports facility, so kind of natural for them just to continue in this way. The seventh example, actually, the cloud was Matrix Store, so a private cloud, a managed service by Object Matrix, but all based around Matrix Store technologies. The eighth example from this call, actually a bit of a disaster. They had LTO. They had to hazmat suit up their employees in order to be able to go to the office and load tapes into the LTO machines in order that they could continue to do remote workflow type operations. But the big message in this, people didn't go to the cloud. Yeah, a little bit, some workflows, or maybe one or two organizations in a bigger way than that. The big message here is people went to remote workflows. And by going to remote workflows, actually, they pretty much managed to carry on working when it came to making new content and broadcasting out content. They didn't run off to the cloud overnight. So what is really going to happen when all of this is over? Are they going to have great experiences with remote work and extend those out, make those even better experiences as we go forward? Or are they going to go, that was pretty awful, and we need to completely change the way we work going forwards? Well, from my experience, from what I've seen, 90% of people turned to remote workflows and actually had a pretty good experience. And I think they are going to take that forward. And yes, they'll put relevant things in the cloud. Yes, they'll look at that. And I think they're going to look at this and go, actually, if I can just do that a little bit better, then that's a really good way of working over the next years, and to build on that and to see where that goes. Remote to private and public cloud. Is this short term? Big question. Is this a short-term answer, or is this going to be a long-term answer for the way that people want to go? I'm going to look at reasons why people might not turn to public cloud in the future. Let's go through these one by one. So first of all, you have unpredictable fees. We did a case study for one particular customer who was really interested in comparing their particular situation on how much that cost on public cloud and how much will that cost on a Matrix Store private cloud. And the fees on public cloud, because they do lots of access to the content and they regularly want to reprocess content and so forth, it came out not only 8 times more expensive than public cloud on their calculations, but also they couldn't really highly predict it. It could have ended up 10 times more expensive or 20 times more expensive, but because they didn't know how often they would be accessing their own data, they basically were very unable to predict how much is this going to cost me over time. Whereas they could do very good cost modeling when it came to on-prem or a private service with very B2B contractual rates around the service. So that is very much a fear factor for people, and not just a fear factor, a reality. Public cloud can be very expensive very quickly if used with lots of access. So a second problem, and one that isn't talked about quite so much, but there's a lock-in when you go onto public cloud platforms. If you go to an AWS platform and then suddenly you want to access a service that's only available on Microsoft Azure, you're kind of locked into an infrastructure that is beginning to tie you away from things. I thought the world had gone away from lock-in when it came to computer services. You know, back in the day of IBM, everything had to be IBM. And we didn't like that. So we said, no, things have to be open. You know, public cloud is a lot about lock-in. But not only is it lock-in in terms of the vendor and the infrastructure and buying into a particular kind of set of tools, if you like, data borders are going up around the world as well. And this is a big problem. You know, who would have thought that China would have suddenly not been able to use Android applications from the USA, going back a few years, or iOS applications for that matter. We wouldn't have thought that, right? But it's very clear that data borders are going up around the world, and COVID has kind of accelerated what was kind of happening anyway. So there's a real danger that if you put your data in a service that isn't basically you, there may become a disconnect between that service and how it's applied, or the company that supplies it, and your future as a company. So it's definitely a consideration that needs to be looked at if you have a serious media archive, media library that you want to reuse over time. Comms bandwidth can be a real big issue. If you're in the office, you can have multiple 10 gig links, multiple 100 gig links for that matter, to your storage. If you're working from home, you might have a 10 megabit link. Big problem. Predictable media access. So yeah, the cloud is someone else's computer, right? And you don't really know what contention is going on there, how they're organizing the data. Yeah, there's very little in the way of SLA about how the data is accessed and available. If you have a media application that needs fast, random access to a very large file, are you really going to get any guarantee over that access of that stream? Yeah, if you're doing I don't know, an Olympics production or a World Cup production or anything that just requires a quality of service, it's pretty much missing from a cloud environment, right? It's not there today. Metadata handling. I mean, the last thing you want to be doing is keeping your metadata separately from your data. The cloud has certain metadata handling things, but it very quickly becomes different databases, different locations. Yeah, I've run an AI analysis. Am I keeping that metadata in a neat, tidy way that I can always access it together with my objects? Or is it getting disconnected into third-party databases, proprietary databases sometimes? You know, these are real issues around public cloud and how you access the services. And you know, there are other issues which are individual to individual organizations. Public cloud is brilliant at certain workflows and certain deliveries of workflows, but it's not a be-all one answer that just simply is the answer to everything. It really depends on individual situations and what you want to do with your workflows. So we need better remote workflows. I think everybody can agree on that. And how can we deliver those with Object Matrix? Well, obviously, there's the scalable storage solution that can work with hybrid. It's efficient, it has security, it has transparency in its delivery, and it has revenue generation capabilities by making everything online and available. How do I exploit that better, either as a technical partner of Object Matrix or as an end user with Object Matrix? Well, there's one answer, which is API, right? If I can access the API, if I can exploit the metadata, if I can set up policies and allow things to happen, then I can automate my workflows. And I can automate my workflows in a way that I automatically take advantage of large, scalable, easy to manage storage, right? Simple. It doesn't always mean that you have to automate the workflows, by the way. It could be that your technical partner is automating the workflows, or it could be that you are the technical partner and you are just integrating more deeply your product with Object Matrix. But it's always the API. So first of all, let's have a look at automating analysis of what is happening with your data, basically. How long has it been kept there? Is it being reused? Is the data in the right tier of storage, or am I paying too much for where it's being kept? And the answer to that is to integrate into a new tool from Object Matrix called Sense. Now, Sense really opens up the whole analytics element of object storage. It not only provides statistics from Matrix Store automatically, which we provide for you, especially in a media context, we're adding into this all the time. But it also allows you to do your own analysis of data. How much audio has been stored? How much has that project cost me according to the usage of the data? Yeah, these kind of answers can be now gained through our Sense interface and API. We can build panels, we can show graphs, we can plot trends. All of this is available through Object Matrix. Going back to the 3 areas of using the API, efficiency and security. You can set up monitoring alerts using the Object Matrix API. Transparency, you can access the audits that are kept within Matrix Store to show when people have accessed objects or folders in order to be able to meet regulation compliance or other security concerns that you may have. And then once all of this is put together, the revenue generation comes out and enables you to be able to use Matrix Store in multiple ways that you just couldn't dream of doing back in the day of a SAN solution. So that is basically the presentation. I think I flew through the 10 different case studies, gave you an introduction to Object Matrix. I hopefully persuaded you that public cloud has its issues as a future way of keeping data. And I say hopefully, not because I don't want public cloud to be successful, but just because I think sometimes it's a bit too easy to dive into a default way of thinking, and actually the reality is something very different. And lastly, just touched upon using APIs with Matrix Store in order to improve your workflows.